Well, hey, everyone, and welcome to episode number 87 of the Other Six podcast. My name is Chad Boken. I am your host. Joining me once again in the studio, my co-host, our worship pastor, the man who says to never trust a doorknob because they'll just turn on you, Matt Collins. Matt, how are you today, sir?
Salty there, man.
Also joining us in the studio today, our lead pastor, Adam Bishop. Adam, how are you today, sir?
I'm grateful for doorknobs.
Yeah, well, we need them.
If we didn't have doorknobs, we'd never get out of rooms.
What about
true, but they'll just turn
door
on.
handles?
I had to do an extemporaneous speech one time in high school on doors. So our teacher would
Wait,
go around.
Wait, back up. Wait,
Our
what?
teacher would go around the class, and she had like a hat, and there were these folded up pieces of paper.
Okay.
You had to pick a paper. You had 60 seconds, and you had to give a 5-minute speech on whatever you pulled out of the hat.
Okay.
And I opened up the little slip of paper, and it said doors. I got a 5-minute speech on doors.
So you could have gone with the band, though.
No.
No, it had to be like actual-
It
Okay.
didn't have the in front of it.
okay, I understand.
You got to have
So
the in front
I
of
did
it.
this whole speech about how can you imagine a life where we're all trapped in rooms, if not for doors.
How terrible that would
was
be,
the title
yeah.
of the speech, if not for
Walkways,
doors.
halls.
So when you said doorknob, I immediately was back in my junior
Can you
year of
recite
high
it?
scholl.
Can you?
Oh no! It's just
I'm sure it was pretty on the spot as it was. Yeah.
it was highly entertaining. If I
Yeah,
recall.
right.
It's a complete waste of time. But I love that teacher. She was fantastic. And if you teach, all the teachers out there, hang in there.
Yeah.
You've only got, a few more
You're
weeks, couple
almost
more weeks?
there.
Couple
Yeah,
days,
it's
yeah.
actually not too bad.
Teachers make a big influence in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
All these years later, we remember things.
We remember
like
Thank
that.
you,
Yeah, like
teachers.
a speech on the doors, or
Yeah.
on doors, not the doors.
Not the doors.
Yeah, not the doors.
Or
Sorry,
doorknobs.
I keep messing it up there. Anyway, well, gentlemen, how was your weekend? It
You ever
was
seen those videos where dogs will open the doors, like with
Yeah,
the little
yeah.
paw and the little thing hangs out? Are you guys, your dogs did this?
no, but I was out at Hardy's house the other day, and his dog will do it.
Oh, my.
Well, literally walked up because I was watching it. Walked up, jumped up, opened the door, and went inside, and then closed the door. And I'm like, "What is going on? Like, how
So
do you
great.
teach a dog to do that?"
Yeah.
No,
I had a
my-
cat that would do that when I was a kid.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
his name
No,
was Smokey. He was mean.
My dog just makes doors.
Smokey.
Yeah,
Yes.
your dog. Yeah, he
Yes.
kind of
He
just
just
jumps through the
does his
windows.
own thing.
Yeah.
Smokey the cat.
He
Smokey
pays
the cat-
his own
Dude, that
path.
cat was evil. He would wait and just attack
Or
you.
it was just a cat.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah,
This
all
is true.
cats.
Yeah, they all have a mind of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, how was your weekend? You get up to anything? I mean, it was Mother's Day, so
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about what you guys had going on this weekend.
I mean, before we talk about Mother's Day, on Saturday we had a pool day at the
Okay.
Bishop House, which turned into WrestleMania.
All right,
so
you
that's
and the
typically
boys?
what
Yeah.
pool days
Is
turn
that
into.
where the tortilla slapping came from?
No, that's a whole different thing. This was just straight up wrestling in the pool. And I got to tell you, with each passing year,
It's getting a
Feel
little bit
it a little
closer.
bit
yeah,
more.
I mean, Sam, he gave me a good little run for his money there. So,
there you go.
So we had a lot of fun, and you can't. It's like, let's all go have a nice, relaxing day at the pool. We're gonna wrestle. You know?
Right,
I mean,
right,
it's
right.
not gonna be a relaxing day.
Well, a bunch of guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
of
mean, we're
course.
gonna get in there, and
Was there a belt involved?
I'm getting one made this
There
week.
should be one made. That's a great idea.
It's going to be presented monthly to whoever retains the title. So we had
Henry,
a-
you'll get there, buddy.
Yeah, Henry will get there. No teeth were knocked out. No bones were broken.
There
I
you
did have
go.
to go to the
That's a win.
chiropractor. So, they did kind of throw my back out a little bit. But hey, it was fun. We had a good
Right.
time. And then, yes, we did honor and celebrate Morgan on Mother's Day. And hopefully all the moms got to be honored and celebrated. And, for us, Sunday's kind of crazy, both
Yeah.
working at the church. But we did our own thing Sunday afternoon and Sunday night, and it was
Okay.
great. Yeah, so I think she felt honored and appreciated.
Well,
And
good.
So the
Yeah.
boys went out of their way to express themselves with words, Matthew. And
Words,
so, yes,
not
on,
tortillas.
on cards that they wrote, and they did. I was proud of them. They did
Well,
a good
good.
job. They
That's
did
a
a
good
really
job,
good
yeah.
job. So yeah, hopefully she felt appreciated.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, your first Mother's Day with responsibility to
Yes,
duty, yeah?
yes, it was. So we made it very special.
Okay.
Me and Banjo made it very special.
Oh, let's go. So what was our day like?
So shopping, that's what she wanted to do, and hanging out at the Boyer's dad's house.
Okay.
No, Joanna's dad's. I can't.
Yeah, they're my
Yeah.
neighbors.
They're
Yeah.
your neighbors?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's where we were
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah,
Okay.
there
That's
you
what
go.
she wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay. right on.
But it was also
Beautiful
her
place.
birthday
Oh,
on
yeah.
Friday, so we did a lot of stuff up to
Oh,
that.
a lot of
They're
things
not
all packed
technically.
in.
They're in another neighborhood, but I can see their house from mine, so that's probably why.
That's- okay,
The look
yes.
of confusion
Yeah.
crossed your face.
I was like, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did. Her birthday was Friday.
Well,
so,
happy birthday to you.
Belated.
Belated, yes.
Related.
So we went to El Rey, so that's where she wanted
Ah,
to
very
go.
nice.
Burrito Lounge.
Dude, the Queso Del Rey, man.
yeah.
It's good stuff, yeah.
Her brother came in town, so we kind of hung out and did some stuff at the house, and then all shopped. That's what she wanted to do. But she also wanted to watch Air. The Nike,
the Michael Jordan
Michael
Nike.
Jordan.
Yeah.
It
I hear it's
is-
pretty good.
It is great, which shocked me. I was like, you want to watch about.
Is it still in theaters?
It's in theaters,
think
but you
it's-
can watch it on Prime.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's where we watched it.
Okay,
Yeah, I
all
think
right.
it's free on Amazon
That's
Prime.
It is.
happening,
It's
right?
free.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's happening this week.
It is. It is awesome.
Yeah, that's-
loved it.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been meaning to do, just never getting around to it.
Yeah. Well, we did. It was
There you go.
awesome.
No, that's great. Yeah, so with we've got family in town, so typically we're over at families on Sunday afternoon, and being in ministry, we always do Mother's Day on Saturday. We do that for Mother's Day and Father's Day, just so that it's a little more special. So we took Christy to the Bubbly Hen, the brunch place. She wanted to go to the Bubbly Hen.
I'm a big fan of the bubble.
I've never been there before.
Great
and,
food.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Great people.
I'm looking at the menu. It's like creme brulee pancakes and all. I'm like, I'm in. Like, I mean, you had me at white
it's
cheddar
good.
grits.
They have this
the
like bacon
omelets are
thing.
I
fantastic.
got the 3-meat omelet.
Come on
It was-
now.
it
That's
was
what I
but
got.
they have this bacon sandwich. It's like that thick.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
The Bubbly Hen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty good.
And you made fun of Hardy and I one time because Hardy and I met there for breakfast, and I told Chad I'm
They
meeting
had
Hardy
bread.
at the Bubbly Hen.
You know what?
And Chad was
They
like, "What's
had
wrong
bread.
with you?" I'm like, "Don't knock it, man. It's amazing
Brunch
food."
bros.
Now,
I take it back. You were right. The Bubbly Hen is delicious.
I mean, just because you went there for Mother's Day weekend, and Hardy and I go there on a Tuesday.
Yeah, I was there with my wife and kids, but I mean, it is what it is. But
It's a great place.
No, it is. It was.
And the
it was
people
fantastic.
who work there are awesome too.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm glad
so,
you enjoyed
so
it.
we did that, and then did Mother's Day gifts, all that kind of stuff. But had a good time. It was good, and then we had a great time here Sunday morning, Vaughn Forest, for Mother's Day. All the photo booths out there. Big shout out to Harper and all our
Yeah.
volunteers, Bill, and
She did a great
few
job,
others
man.
that helped get all that stuff together. I mean,
All
it
the
was
child dedication.
child dedication.
Almost
That's
said
right.
baby dedications.
How
but
many
it's
did we
child
have in the
dedication.
first service? Like 15.
Yes,
A lot.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe.
Yeah,
A lot.
More
and a
than
few more in the
5.
second service. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Lots of kids.
Yeah, so it was a good Sunday, and weather was nice, and then so then afterwards went over to my parents' house for Mother's Day that evening. Got to spend some time with them, so it was
Nice.
good, man. It was a good weekend. Really excited. It's warming up outside. You can
I
tell.
did call my mom too.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Okay.
I
Well,
did
that's good.
Talk to
Yeah.
my
That was
mom.
just assumed. Like you're supposed to
Right,
call your
right,
mom
yeah.
on
Yeah.
Mother's Day. You know.
Yeah. Now the good thing for me is my mom it doesn't matter if it's birthday, Mother's Day, Christmas. She wants the same thing: a gift card to Dillard's. So that is all she wants: a gift card to Dillard's. Now here's the only
That's not a bad gift.
Yeah.
It's not, but here's the downside of that. If you walk into the Dillard's here, and no disrespect to anyone who works at Dillard's,
Oh, boy.
they have like 500 like checkout counters. Can't ever find anyone behind one of
They're
them.
too
So
busy
it's always-
working, man.
They're getting it
helping
done.
customers.
They're helping
Helping.
customers.
Yes.
So, but I did find someone. I got the gift card. She got it. So we're I fulfilled the Mother's Day duties with that. So
There you go.
God bless
There you go.
Dillard's.
that's right. We appreciate them. Anyway, but we did have a great Sunday. Continued our message series, Sermon on the
We
Mount.
did.
Yeah.
Sermon on the Mount. And yesterday your message was counterculture. You even said that you were going to call the whole series counterculture.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
thought
thought
about
about
that.
that.
Yeah.
Thought about it. It crossed your mind, and
That's
then
right.
we
But
didn't
we
go
had
with
already
it.
created the logo.
We already created the logo.
The graphic was done. Yeah.
And it was done. And
The
Chad's
bumper
like,
video
no.
was done.
Everything's
No.
finished.
Yeah, we're not
and
changing.
it's called the Sermon on the Mount. So
Right.
I
You
decided
know,
to outdo
pretty
that.
popular
Yeah.
sermon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it seems to me, Christian followers, we are always going in like counter to culture. So, do you believe that? And if so, why do you think that?
Well, we could unpack that for a while.
Well, let's do.
Yeah, I mean, there's the countercultural component to the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus is just, you have heard it said, but now
Right.
I'm saying. I think the irony of that is he's talking to the religious establishment.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when we think countercultural, we tend to think in terms of the spiritual versus the secular. So there's
Yeah.
those of us who are Christ followers, and we are countercultural to those who are not Christ followers.
Yeah.
I do think there are some components of that. So, there should be some things that are noticeably different about our lives.
Yeah.
We could talk about the fruit of the Spirit. We could talk about
Right.
salt and light, a lot of things we talk
Yeah.
about. But not countercultural in a way where because of those differences, we act like we're better than everybody else, which unfortunately has kind of been the mark of a lot of Christians over
Yeah.
the years.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
say that taking a countercultural approach within the cultural Christianity of the day is probably helpful as well.
Okay.
That there is this cultural Christianity that
Yeah.
exists that looks a lot like first century world that the Pharisees were perpetuating. That's all about how you look and how you talk and what you do
Right.
and your appearances and playing the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
And your heart's nowhere close to God.
Yeah.
And so there's a countercultural aspect to Christendom or cultural Christianity that we need to step into as well. And at the end of the day, like if you're walking with Jesus, to the best you can at a heart level, seeking Him and seeking to grow in your faith, there's going to be something different about your life.
Yeah.
And in that sense, there should be something that is countercultural to who you are. But then I would say the gospel has always spread most quickly in 2,000 years of church history when it wasn't exactly going completely against culture. Like, what are we talking about now? Now you're totally
Wait.
you just totally
What?
Turn that on. its head a little bit.
contradicted
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are written with a cultural context to them. So Matthew is written primarily for a Jewish audience.
Right.
Yeah.
Mark is written primarily for a Roman audience. Luke is a doctor, and he's going to give us a little bit more of a historical context. And John, decades later, is writing a little bit more 30,000-foot perspective. Let's take Jesus all the way back before Genesis 1, which is why John 1:1 says.
Yeah.
So there's and even the letters. Like Paul's writing a letter to a place called Corinth. And if you don't know what was going on in Corinth at the time, some of the things you're reading in the letter doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there's
context.
always a cultural component and context. I mean, the Reformation happens in the context of a particular culture.
Right.
Martin Luther, he's a monk. And he's trying to reform the Catholic Church, and it's not going well. So he posts his 95 thesis on a wall and a door, rather, in Wittenberg.
Nails it to it.
Yeah, and the rest is history. So, you could talk about revivals. You could talk about the Second Great Awakening. All these. So there's always this element where when God is moving, it's in cooperation with what God is up to at the world at large. And so, what's the modern day application of that?
Yeah.
Right.
We only do church on Sundays. Why? So what I would suggest is if we as churches said, well, every day is God's day. This is the Lord's day.
Yeah.
Well, if Monday is also the Lord's day, Tuesday is the Lord's day, every day is the Lord's day. But our context of church and established Christianity, Sunday is the day of worship. Okay, cool. Well, our world treats Sunday like any other day. So if we wanted to cooperate with that, so to speak, we would offer worship services on different days of the week other than Sunday, whether it's Saturday, whether it's Thursday, whether it's Monday, whether it's Tuesday, whether it's Wednesday. So what I would simply suggest is that would be an example of cooperating with culture.
Okay.
If a lot of people can't participate in corporate worship on weekends, well, we could sit here all day long and go, well, that shouldn't be. Or we could say, well, based on what we observe for people's jobs and their rhythm and the culture we live in today, what if we offered them another opportunity to worship? Our online worship experience is also a really good example of this. A lot of people spend a lot of time online. Well, we're not going to say worship can't be a part of that world. So we offer online worship service. This podcast. A lot of people receive information through podcast. I mean, we hear all the time, we like the podcast more than Adam's sermons. And I take that
We don't know what to do.
as a great compliment because what I hear people saying is, you're meeting me where I'm at.
Right.
Okay, so we're cooperating. Okay,
Yes.
so once you
I'm with
understand
you.
a cultural
Track and following you.
context of whether it's art, film, rhythm, work life, education, and you cooperate in that paradigm, the gospel can move forward. So I think it's a pretty complex discussion to have that my individual life should look different. But as we continue to take the gospel to the ends of the earth, we better use technology.
Right,
We better
right.
use
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of things that we have at our disposal today, and in that way, cooperating with culture for good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's got to be discernment for how we can participate in culture to advance the gospel, and there's got to be discernment where we draw the line and say, we can't go there.
Right.
That's completely counter to what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus.
Be in the world, but not of it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Isn't that in the Bible somewhere?
Yeah, somewhere. I think.
Look at
the
the worship pastor.
Yeah.
Come on.
What?
Yes. Preach it. Matt's preaching this week, Chad. I don't know if I told you that.
Oh, that's going to be great.
Hey.
I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Well, so we won't have anybody there. We'll do a lot of songs.
That's good.
So I
He
thought-
said that in a much more succinct way than I did.
Yeah, so I thought it interesting where you talked there about, this discernment. So like, how do we, give me an example and help me know, like, how do we have that discernment, methods we should use versus methods we shouldn't? Is it just what's spelled out in the Bible? Like, how do we do that?
Well, methods? I mean, you got a lot of freedom and flexibility with methods.
Okay.
As the great Dr. Towns once said, methods are many, principles are few. Methods may change, principles never do.
Okay, let's
so you
go.
got a lot
Look
of
at
methods. I mean, if I thought having a clown come out on Sundays and juggle while he quoted John 3:16 would get people saved, we would do it, But I don't think that's going to work.
Speaking of Matt's message on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, So I think you got a lot
really
of
awkward.
freedom and flexibility with the methods that
Sure.
you go about, as long as you're not changing the gospel message.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of that. But if you're ever in a situation where you're being asked to do something or believe something that's counter to the gospel, well, draw the line.
Right.
Yeah.
You
That's
know
right.
that you're not going to do that. I mean, there's lines we won't cross.
Right.
You know, we're not going to change the gospel message. We're not going to stop singing to Jesus. We're
Right,
not going to
right.
stop preaching the Bible. However, you'll see across the landscape of our country, there are a lot of churches that are making that decision.
That's right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of churches that think, well, if we want to reach people where they're at, we're going to have to back off of this whole truth thing a little bit. Well, that's a terrible plan.
Right.
It's sinful, and God won't bless it, and your church will die.
Right.
To the glory of Jesus, because you kept preaching.
Yeah.
You stopped preaching Jesus.
Right, yeah.
So you got to know what is true. You got to make sure you don't ever compromise that. But then, as far as how you go about doing it, there's a lot of different ways. Which is, I mean, we talk about that primarily here at Vaughn Forest when it comes to how we do kids ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
So our kids, I bet if your kids are in our kids ministry, they got more Bible verses memorized than you do. Because I've listened to them. I've watched them
Yeah.
quote
Yeah.
these verses. But we're teaching them the Bible in a way that is more wired to how they are wired,
Right.
not to how we were wired when
Right.
we were
Right.
kids,
Right.
which is a big challenge in a lot of churches.
Yeah.
Because who teaches the kids? The adults. And so a lot of times churches ask the kids to bend their learning styles to the adults' teaching styles. And what we do a lot is we challenge our adults to bend their teaching styles to the kids' learning
Right,
styles.
right.
So
Yeah.
that would be another example of just a method of how
Yeah.
we're trying to go about, doing that.
And that's a great example of cooperating a bit with the culture in order to get that message across. I think that's really, really good.
Right.
That's really
Yeah, I
good.
like that. So shifting gears, a little bit, I thought it was really interesting in verse 37, where Jesus talks about, anything beyond yes and no is evil, is what Scripture says there. So my question is like, so if I say, I promise I'll do this to someone to maybe give them a higher confidence that that's going to happen, is that sin to go anything beyond that? I mean, it seems to be what he's saying there.
Yeah, you need to stop it right now.
I promise I will.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
No, we live in a fallen, broken world
Sure.
where you have to sign everything.
Right? Yeah.
DocuSign. You ever got one of
Hey,
those?
Chad, I need you to
Yeah,
sign
absolutely.
this real quick.
They draw your little initials for you, and you're like, it kind of looks like the way I draw it.
It's legally
Good enough.
binding.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's fine.
I'll just
Yeah.
hit accept, and
Yeah.
hopefully it works.
Yeah.
But I like the ones you can pick out the one that you want.
Oh, yeah, you're different font.
Nah, yeah, we live in a fallen, broken world. So you're going to have to make promises. You're going
Right.
to have to sign contracts. You're going to have to have other people vouch for you.
Right, yeah.
You're going to have references, and you're going to have to proof of employment. I mean, this is just the world we live in.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, it's not sinful to tell someone, I promise I'll take care of it,
Mm-hmm.
given the world we live in. But it is sinful if you have the type of reputation where nobody believes you, and you feel like you have to keep saying that over and over to
Yeah.
get people to trust you again.
Yeah. I
So
got
if you've built the type of reputation where you can't be trusted, then you may find yourself having to do that all the time. Well, that's a whole different reason because of the fallen, broken world we live in. You've brought that on yourself. And that's going to show up in your circle of people who know you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Your friends, your family
They know
members,
you.
your boss, And so, I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're a person that's marked by integrity and you do what you say you're going to do, then you don't have to worry about that. But then there's always times where our intent is to do something happens and we couldn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So do you circle back around? Right. Hey, I know I told you I was going to do this, but something came up and I wasn't able to. Then you're a person of integrity. You're building trust. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that you're leaving. Life happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chad, I'll meet you at 3. Well, the interstate got shut down.
Right. Yeah.
Chad, I'm not going to meet you.
But
at 3.
I didn't leave Chad hanging.
Yeah.
He just. I never showed up. No. So I think we all understand the principle there.
Yeah.
So no, it's okay to say I promise. It's okay to say, emphasize. But if you're having to do that because you sense this person doesn't believe me.
Right.
Well, now there's a bigger problem that you need to work out with somebody. And I would start by saying, just look at them and go, it kind of seems to me right now that you don't believe me.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Right.
What have I done to give you the impression that I won't do this?
Yeah.
And then sit down and get a pen and a pad. They'll probably start telling you some things that you may not even be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, and once again, it's an example of like going beyond just what the letter of law says and into the heart issue, as Jesus so often does here in the Sermon on the Mount.
Well, let's talk about that. Someone who has not kept their word the best in the past, but they want to change. What would you tell that person? How would they start to build that trust up again?
Well, sit down and make a list of everybody that you've hurt everybody that you've lost trust with, everyone you've lied to, and then get to work on the phone, not through text messages.
You might need a couple notebooks.
Yeah, on the phone or in person. Own it.
Yeah.
Own it. Don't blame. Don't give excuses. Own 100% of it.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to let you know that I'm aware that my lying or my deceitfulness or my not telling you the whole story has created, a lack of trust. And I want you to know I'm owning that. I'm apologizing for it. I'm asking you to forgive me. And I'm going to ask you to give me the opportunity to earn your trust back. You're going to have to do that one conversation at a time, one person at a time. And it's probably going to take a long time. And then understand that everybody will probably be like, we'll see.
Yeah.
And you can't get mad at people when they have that attitude because they're going to wait and see. Do you actually mean it? Anybody can say anything.
Yeah.
You build trust through your actions.
Yep.
So, but you've got to start by owning it. You've got to let that other person know that you're aware of what you've done.
Right.
You accept full responsibility for it.
Yeah.
You ask for forgiveness, and then you start doing the hard work of rebuilding trust. But then let me just say this. I've been around people that are pathological liars. I don't know if y'all have ever been around a pathological liar. It's really sad.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really sad. And so I don't say that in any way to, make light of that.
Yeah.
But if that's your situation, again, we talk about this a lot in the podcast. Like there are biblically based Christian counselors that can help you with anything that you have a challenge with, and someone could help you.
Right.
Someone could help walk you through the process of healing, whether that's therapy, counseling, medication, a combination of all of the above to get your life back. Because right now, your life is being robbed by the enemy, and you may not have as much control over it as you think you do.
Right.
And the first part in getting healing that is just admitting that, just owning that.
Yeah.
I have a situation here that's completely out of control. I need help. Okay. And again, we can help. We can help you find someone who can help you. And so, sometimes there are people who are, habitual liars. There are people who just run their mouth a lot and don't even realize they're lying. And there are some people that there is it's a condition that, it's okay. It's okay to not be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not okay to stay there.
Yeah.
You're actually just going to keep bringing destruction into your life. But if that's where you're at, you got to start owning it and then have people help you kind of build a new path. Take a new route, so to speak. Don't stay on that path.
Yeah.
As he's talking about making a list and calling, all I can think of is Billy Madison, where Adam Sandler's. I'm glad I called that guy.
So great.
Anyway, it's a great movie. All right.
Anytime you got Billy Madison reference,
I'm just saying, that's what I was thinking. So I want to camp out a little bit where Jesus is talking. He says, "You've heard it said, eye for eye, tooth for tooth," and then he again changes the paradigm on us and says, "Turn the other cheek." Your interpretation of that was that Jesus is telling us not to take the law into our own hands. But then you said we also are not to let someone else beat us up. So I want to unpack that a little bit. Like where is that line? Because do you mean just a physical beating? Is it an emotional beating as well? And I just think for some folks, it may be, hard to know when to turn the other cheek and when to not let someone beat them up.
Yeah, I've never been asked. How do I know when not to let myself get beat
exactly,
up? Yeah, they're kind of two totally separate categories. Which is the challenge with this passage is when we read these passages, we read into the passages everything about our lives, everything about our world, everything about our circumstances. We are not first century Hebrews sitting on the side of a mountain listening to Jesus teach this. Okay, so again, we have to understand the passage in its original context. And then we can begin to deduce applications from that. So correct application follows correct interpretation.
Right.
So Jesus is saying, hey, you've heard it said eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but I'm telling you right now, if somebody slaps you on the cheek, you go ahead and just let them slap you on the other one. Well, it's this way of overemphasizing you don't need to take things into your own hands.
Right.
You don't need to retaliate. We've already seen in the Sermon on the Mount, peacemaker. We've already seen power under control through meekness. We've already seen forgiveness. We've already seen reconciliation. Right. We've already seen this. You guys are just all looking for reasons to divorce your wife instead of upholding the institution of marriage. Yeah. And so there's a rhythm here that's being communicated. And the idea that, he would say, if someone slaps you on the cheek, turn and let him slap you on the other cheek. Well, in Eastern culture, and probably even I would say in Western culture today, there's a little bit of an insult to be slapped on the cheek.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And especially in Eastern culture, being slapped on the cheek, throwing a shoe at someone, I don't know if you remember years ago.
Bush.
Yeah, George W. Bush. You know,
He dodged it. He was pretty spry.
And in certain cultures, there are things you do that are insulting.
Yeah.
So if we understand that, and again, I don't have time to go into all this in the message, but hey, if someone insults you, what do you care? Let them insult you again.
Yeah.
I heard an interview, Carrie Newhoff was interviewing Mark Batterson, and fantastic interview. And Mark Batterson, who's written tons of books that I would recommend all of his books, Carrie Newhoff said, hey, Mark, let's talk about this. I've heard you mention this before, that one of your goals is to become an unoffendable person. How's that going? And Mark said, well, I'm still working on it. But living in Washington, D.C., pastoring in Washington, D.C., that's a really good goal. He's not going to be offended by anybody. Your political beliefs, your perspective on this, that, and the other. And basically what he's trying to say is like, I claim no right to be offended.
Right.
You know, so my life is to be lived for Jesus and to love people and meet them wherever they're at, try to learn their story. How do they end up like this?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to get hung up on whether or not what somebody says offends me.
Right.
I'm going to become
Right.
I think that's a little bit about what Jesus is going for here. If somebody offends you, what do you care?
Yeah.
You know, so it's not about you. And so there's a whole lot there going on with what's happening at a heart level, which is why I chose the application I chose, which is when you're wronged, you can choose retaliation or you can choose forgiveness.
Right.
Ultimately, that's what's happening in this passage. It is in all of us to want to retaliate when we're wrong.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are some people that I've, read and listened to share testimony that had horrific things happen
Right.
to themselves or family members, and they've chosen forgiveness. They have not chosen retaliation.
Right.
And so that's a really powerful thing. I got an
Yeah.
email just last week from someone who was joining us online and shared a story from their past that kind of talked to that.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah,
really
yeah.
powerful story. So there's all of that happening. And then there's so am I just supposed to let somebody beat me up?
Right,
Well,
right.
that has nothing to do
Right,
with
right,
any of this. But let's talk about it,
Yeah.
because the answer's no.
Right.
Don't.
And
do
you
that.
said, emotionally, physically,
yeah.
what was some of the other? I mean,
Yeah.
just any type of.
any kind of
All of the above.
abuse, beating. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The way we treat each other.
No. You're not supposed to let somebody do that to you. You're not supposed to let someone treat you however they want to treat you, talk to you however they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Certainly physically harm you. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So we are people who are called to be peacemakers, but we're also people who are called to stick up for those who have no voice, to defend those who have no one else who will defend them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's part of what it means to be a Christ follower. If someone tries to hurt another person and you're there, you need to stop it.
Right.
You need to step in. That's part of what it means to actually be salt and light. We're trying to move evil back.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to chase
that's
evil
right. Yeah.
away.
That's right.
So no. I'm not going to seek out. I'm not going to be an instigator. I'm going to be a peacemaker.
Yeah.
But if somebody brings it, let's go. And it's not about me. It's about
Right.
being a protector. Now, I'm going to be a protector for others. And if it comes to it, I can be a protector for myself as well. But I'll just speak for me, and then we can all have some fun with this.
Sure.
I've got a pretty high level of tolerance when it comes to myself.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, say whatever you want to about
Yeah,
me.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been in
Yeah.
some situations over the years that I could share some stories.
One or two.
Say whatever
So-
you want, and they will. Yeah.
No, we were I'll tell you a story. We were on a subway in New York City one time, and it was super late at night, and we were on a mission trip, and I had a bunch of students with me, and this one guy on the train just decided he wanted to just run his mouth for a really long time. And I think he thought at some point, like, I would just step to the side so he could get by me and get closer to where my students were, and that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I just stood there the whole time and didn't look at him in the eye, and I didn't. But somebody yelling. Well, what does that do? You're just yelling.
Right.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Right.
Just-
Yeah.
Noise.
So it's a lovely Tuesday, and he's yelling, So, like, I mean, if somebody physically threatens me, it's like, okay, well, what are we doing here? And you just kind of have to stay calm and all. But if somebody physically threatens somebody I care about, now that's a different story.
Yeah, that's
You see what
right.
I'm saying? Whether it's
Yeah.
my family or
Yeah.
if it's one of y'all or so,
Yeah.
So I think that everybody has to know, like, are you a hothead? Are you somebody that's easily instigated, or and you got to be aware of that.
Right.
You've also got to help. Again, I mean, I don't raise daughters; I raise boys. So we talk about these kind of situations all the time, where if you get in a situation and somebody else starts instigating things, what do you do?
Right.
A lot of times for us, that happens in the context of athletics because I coach my boys' ball teams, and we see different examples. And
emotions are high.
and we've had to talk to these young men before about, hey, if somebody starts something with you, it's always the guy who fights back that gets caught, and trying to help them understand. So there's a lot of that needs to go into this when it just comes to how we help people understand how to navigate in a fallen and a broken world, where there are people who will do very evil things.
Yeah.
And if people don't stand up to the evil gets the upper hand.
Right.
So that's a whole different discussion than what this particular verse is addressing.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I like what you said there. That's really good. And I love what you said about, there's very few situations that calls for action. But when it does call us for action, I like what you said. We need to be prepared for that. And, again, as a father who is raising daughters, the things we teach them is about trying not to be in those situations as much as possible. But if you need to get someone, you get someone.
Yeah, I mean, where would our world be today if not for godly men and women who have stood up to evil for all of human history?
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, so that's what we have to keep doing.
Right.
And we have to raise the next generation to be willing to do that as well. Because as I said in the message, evil never takes a day off.
That's right.
Evil just never says, well, I guess we've taken enough ground.
Yeah.
No, evil
it's gonna
won't
keep
stop
going.
unless somebody stops it.
And that's such a scriptural principle because you talked about it just now, salt and light. So that's really good.
Yeah, that's good. Well, verse 40 and 41 talks about going the extra mile. Why do you think Jesus brought it up here? Because it kind of seems like he's shifting gears into reactionary behavior to proaction behavior. So what's the principle at play here?
That's a really good way of wording that question because, Jesus as the master teacher, maybe he needed to shift gears intentionally. It's like I've given them enough things that they're not
now
supposed
do something.
Now maybe I can
go do something.
Yeah, reactionary. Now being more proactive.
Yeah.
And so I like the way you worded that because that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
He's trying to empower them to see like you still can make a decision here. You still can decide what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people over the years that have unpacked this more, and we understand a lot more now than maybe first century. So Viktor Frankl, I think it's pronounced Frankl. He
I like that. Yeah.
He survived the Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
So he saw every person in his family murdered in concentration camps, his wife, his children, everything. And so I can't remember the name of the book, but when he got out, obviously after World War II ended, he wrote this book. And the famous line from the book is, the last human freedom any of us have is to choose our attitude in every situation. And he said what he learned was the Nazi soldiers could not make him hate them. They could take everything else away from him in his life. They could not make him hate them. And when he realized he still had that choice, that he could choose to love them despite everything they had taken from him, it's one of the most powerful, empowering things that a person can experience. Wow. And there's entire schools of psychology that have been developed from this principle that he discovered having lived through that. And so what he's unpacking there, in many ways, Jesus is tapping into it that day. What Jesus is trying to help them see is, listen, even when someone is oppressing you, when someone is commanding you to do something you don't want to do, internally, you can still gain the upper hand by choosing to do more than what they're asking you to do.
Right.
Go 1 mile, Jesus says, no, go 2. And what's the point there? Then in every situation, even if you're not in charge, you're actually still in charge. Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
The last human freedom any of us have is to choose our attitude in every situation. I'm not going to let them make me hate them. And so there's so much power there for all of us in a lot of everyday lives because you're going to be in some type of circumstance where you don't like the person who is an authority over you. Whether it's a boss, a teacher, a coach, an HOA board member, all the different things. And when you're in that situation, go back to Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
I haven't lost my family in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let that person force hatred in my heart.
Right.
So I may not like the way they're leading. I may not like what I'm being asked to do. I may not like the culture of the office. I may not like but I can still choose how I will respond. And when you recognize you still have that freedom, it's really powerful. And so, for these, again, uneducated, poor, no rights at all in society, being forced to carry luggage, it's incredibly embarrassing and shameful. And Jesus empowers them by going, hey, what if you told that Roman soldier you would take it too instead? And the Roman soldier now is looking at the person going, wait, what just happened here?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a very empowering thing that comes from a heart of serving. And I think that it's a really powerful principle then to try to apply in a lot of different areas of our lives, which is, again, parenting, grandparenting, all the things. If you raise kids or grandkids that go the extra mile, do more than is asked or expected, they'll be everybody's boss one day.
That's exactly right.
They're going to go through, they're going to climb the corporate ladder very quickly. They're going to stand out in any organization that they work at. And I know that everybody's like, oh, I know, that makes so much sense. But no, I don't.
Doing it's
very
hard.
rarely do we see it play out.
Doing that is very hard.
And the reason why is because kids and teenagers and college students have all been coddled so much to believe that this entire planet depends on them. They're going to go change the world. No, you're going to staple papers or you're going to do some, lame job and not get paid enough money, and you're going to be devastated because everybody told you your entire life that you were amazing, you were going to leave your mark. No, you're not. You're going to go to a job that you don't like. You're going to have a boss that doesn't respect you, and now it's called, is your character going to develop? And if your character develops, and then all of a sudden you're going to turn around in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, you won't be in that same place anymore. But it's so amazing when you see this, people in their 20s, you can see who was raised that way. You can see who was raised to go the extra mile. I mean, we're fortunate here. And we've got some folks on our team like Jonathan. Jonathan will do anything we ask him to do. It's incredible. And I've met Jonathan's parents. Like, that makes sense. She'll do anything we ask her to. You mentioned in the beginning that I've met Harper's parents. Makes sense.
That's exactly right.
We have some people on our team that fit that generation, and they actually model what we're talking about the right way.
Right.
They go the extra mile.
Right.
And all of you call Vaughn Forest home, you benefit from having people who serve on our team who go the extra mile. So if you're raising your kids, build that into them now.
Yes, yes,
build that
absolutely,
into them now. Because once they get out into the quote unquote real world, they'll succeed if they have that mindset. And then for the adults, like, go the extra mile. Be the person who picks up trash. Now, don't be the person who pulls over your car to help a turtle, because you might get hit. Someone told me that a week or two ago, and I'm like, you realize you're risking your entire life for a turtle. Now, I like turtles too. Okay, I am pro turtle. But like, if you pull over to move a turtle in the middle of the road, you might get hit by a car. Did you try this late?
Well,
are we about to have an intervention?
So this past Saturday night, I was driving, and
I had no idea of this. And Matthew has not told me this.
A squirrel ran out in front of our van, and there was a car right behind us in our neighborhood, and the squirrel shed the mortal coil. Is probably the only best way of saying that.
From your van?
From my van.
From his van.
But I didn't want the car behind us to hit us, and so now I will say the next morning, as I was driving to church, there were squirrels like lining. They knew, man. They knew.
Little procession.
Anyway,
we're gonna have no. We're telling stories now. So you brought it up. We got the whole go the extra mile.
Yeah, go the extra mile. So
when I get my nephew just got his driver's license. So we were back over in Georgia last weekend for that football camp. So I'm hanging out with my nephew. He's 16. He's a great kid. So we're talking. So I'm talking to him about when my dad, I got my driver's license. So remembering some things. So I did not tell Carson, my nephew, this story, but I'm going to tell everybody on our podcast.
Here we go.
So when I get my driver's license when I turned 16, and my dad, great dad, telling me all these great things about driving. And he says, the one thing you have to remember, not the one thing, he said, one of the things to remember when you're driving is hit every animal you see.
Yes.
And I was like, Dad, like, that sounds terrible. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, no. You're hearing me the wrong way. He goes, there have been a lot of people over the years that when an animal runs out in front of them, they'll swerve to miss the animal, and they'll hit another vehicle or they'll hit a tree. And he goes, listen, obviously, I mean, we have pets. We love pets. But it's better to hit the squirrel than to hit somebody else head on. And I okay, I get it, Dad. You're not telling me to seek out animals with my vehicle, but
don't steer into it. But
so I was like, okay, log that to memory. So my senior year of high school. So this would have been 2 years later. So my senior high school, I was probably out playing basketball one night. That's basically all we ever did was play basketball at different people's houses. And so I'm driving home. It's not late, but it's probably 11 o'clock. I mean, not 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Probably about 11 o'clock at night. I'm on my way home. And as I'm going down the little 2-lane road that you had to get to eventually get to the road we live on, I see like what looks like headlights where they're not supposed to be headlights. And they're facing, and it's just kind of, so the closer I get, I'm like, what? I'm like, that's a car.
Yeah.
So like I pull over and there's this car that has like totally like not hit a tree head on, but it's kind of wrapped around this tree.
No.
And the lady that's driving is still in the car. And so, you know, she's screaming and she's freaking out. And so like I go up to her and, you know, I'm like, you know, hey, you know, is everything okay? And she looks at me and she goes, did I miss the dog? That's what she asked me.
I think you missed it.
And I said, yeah, he's great. Like, I can't see it. It's pitch black dark.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine.
And I mean, she was terrified. And my parents had just gotten me like an emergency phone, like to use in any situation. So I ran back to my car, called 911, got the police there. And I didn't know what to do. I'm an 18-year-old kid, and she's upset, and I'm just trying to comfort her. And she is just, I mean, I called her husband for her. I was just doing everything I could to try to help her. And I'll never forget this because I finally looked at her. I go, would you like a piece of gum? Like, for whatever reason, that's what calmed her down.
Okay, well, see,
she goes, yes, actually. So I gave her gum, and it worked. And so she calmed down. She stopped crying.
Juicy fruit.
The police got there, and you know, she ended up. I think she ended up being. I went home. You know, once the cops got there, so you know, she seemed to be okay. But the point is,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, when you're driving, you got to be careful with all these different
literally
things.
A conversation I've had with Lena, my daughter, because she's starting to get up. I mean, she's going to be 14 actually Sunday. And so we have started.
Might have a congregational singing,
There
Matthew.
we go. That'll work. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
There you go. But she, which by the way, she told me, I said, what do you want to do for your birthday? She goes, can I have a couple of friends over, spend the night, and we can watch Star Wars? I was like, I am parenting the right way. Yes, I cried for a
Yeah,
while.
she said, and go to church so Matt can lead the worship and I can listen to Adam teach.
That was all.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That was the next thing.
Yeah, that's this is Friday.
right
That's
there
Sunday.
under
Yeah. But anyway, but we had that exact same conversation. Like, do not swerve. You know, like your life is more. Anyway, so I played that out.
Have you guys ever hit an animal, like for real? Like a deer or anything?
Coming out of Bridlebrook one time, a deer walked across. I was able to slow down
over here.
so that it just kind of bumped it. So it wasn't too bad, but never like full on.
I hit a deer one time at about 70 miles an hour.
Good.
Yeah.
You're
It was
still
a deer.
alive.
Yeah.
So it was on Highway 316 that runs to the University of Georgia when we lived over there. And it was like 5:30 in the morning. I was on my way to a meeting. And I didn't even see it. And so when I hit it, it rolled down the whole right side of my car. So it dented every panel on the side of my car, the front and the whole right-hand side. And it was an older car, so I never got it fixed. I just,
totaled.
So no,
it drove though.
It still ran. So a year and a half later, I'm sitting at a red light. And we're telling stories. I'm sitting at a red light, and these two cars on Highway 316, like right in front of me. You've driven on Highway 316.
Yeah.
So that one turns in front of the other, and it gets T-boned, and they ricochet off each other into me while I'm just sitting in the red. Totaled my car. Like, that's how fast my car got totaled, and I wasn't even moving. I'm just sitting there. So it's
Why?
So the police officer is like writing up the report, and we're standing there looking at my car. The whole front end is just caved in, and he's looking at it. He's like, "All right." He's like, "I understand reconstructing the accident scene, how all this happened." He goes, "But what I can't figure out is how did the whole side over here get dented?" And I go, "Oh, it was a deer, man, 18 months ago." And he's like, "You serious?" I'm like, yeah. He goes, "Well, I'm gonna write it up on the report for you anyway. It'll help with your insurance."
There you go.
Like,
I thought he was going to say he's sitting on that highway. A deer limps out of the forest. He looks at him.
That's where it was
there was no limping.
I remember you.
That deer did not limp.
He also shed the mortal coil rather
He
quickly.
did not limp. All right, I don't know how we got on that. You got us on that.
You know, normally people get this at the beginning of the podcast.
Yes,
This is a reward
we
for those who
digress.
It's like an Oreo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Cakes got layers. All right. So shifting back to the message from Sunday.
I thought we were done.
No,
Sorry.
I got one more question for you. So
It's an important one.
Strike up the music, John. I think we're done. But nobody's listening anymore.
So whenever we're kind of coming up with these questions, I listen to the message, Matt listens to the message, and we've talked about this. We always try to go, all right, what are some things when you preach on these verses that we've always kind of wondered? What comes to mind? And so Jesus talks here about people asking to borrow from us, and he says that we're to give to those who ask, we're to lend, we're to not turn away. So I want to unpack that a little bit more because, Jesus has just told us, like, don't let people take advantage of you, all that kind of stuff. So if we're not supposed to let people take advantage of us financially or otherwise, he's telling us to give to whoever asks. Can you help me understand that a little bit more?
Well, I don't know if he was saying so much don't let people take advantage of you as don't let people, physically or emotionally
Okay,
abuse you.
Sure.
I kind of do see those things a little different. I think it means what it says.
Okay.
I think if there's people in need and you can help meet the need, meet the need.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the greater principle there.
Okay.
In the New Testament, it says that they gave everything they had. They literally, part of their conversion experience led them to the conclusion that these earthly possessions aren't really mine anymore. So there really was this community aspect where every need was going to be met.
Yeah.
And so, that's the beauty of being a part of a church is, when you, again, we said you're not giving to Vaughn Forest Church.
Yeah.
You're giving to God through Vaughn Forest Church.
Right.
But part of your obedience and giving to God through Vaughn Forest Church is that those funds are used for these types of things.
Right.
We have an entire benevolence ministry. I never feel like I have to give financially to another organization for needs to be met. I just give more money to Vaughn Forest Church because I know what's going to be used, whether it's homelessness, whether it's people who are hungry, whether it's people who need medical care, all the different things. Like our church is actively involved in that. And so because, and I'm just speaking for myself here, Morgan and I have chosen to be generous when it comes to the finances we've been entrusted with to God through Vaughn Forest Church. I feel like I have a little bit more freedom than with how I handle particular situations that come my way in everyday life and other scenarios or circumstances. So, if it seems sketchy, it probably is.
Right.
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's usually fire.
Right.
And so I can use some wisdom and discernment. But I would say to the person who says, well, I do that too, but you're not also being generous. No. We're not talking about the same thing.
Gotcha.
That's apples and oranges.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you've got to establish obedience and generosity first, and then I think God will give you wisdom and discernment in
Okay.
particular situations that you're made aware of where there
Sure.
are needs that are legit, as opposed to somebody who's just running some type of scheme.
Yeah.
And I think we've all I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I think we can all see the difference
Sure.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
But aligning yourself with a healthy organization that participates in that at a high level is a really, really good first step. And for those of you who give, like you've already made that choice. But if you haven't, I would encourage you to begin to do that because that is a part of how we function as a church. But then, in everyday life, if there are such situations or circumstances that come about that there's a need here, we'll meet it.
Yeah.
Meet it, whether it's through clothes or toys or something as simple as giving really big tips when you go out
Yeah.
to restaurants
Yeah.
to people who are working really hard and they need that money.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I think that living a life of generosity and trying to meet needs as you see them in your own everyday life as you can, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
But I think that question comes back to the greater principle we've talked about so many times here on the podcast is you got to be walking in the Spirit.
Yeah.
Because if you walk in the Spirit, there's going to be some times, and again, when we lived in New York, this was an everyday occurrence. So, I passed 30 opportunities to give away money every day on my way to the
of course.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, developing wisdom and discernment for who to help and who not to help. And obviously our church up there was really involved in doing a lot of things in the city. But every now and then the Lord would kind of speak to my heart, hey, go help that person, or go talk to that person, or go see if there's something you can do. But then sometimes that wouldn't be the case. And so I think that's one of these things where you've got to really be in tune with the Spirit, because sometimes the Holy Spirit may lead you to do something that catches you off guard.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may actually be thinking the Holy Spirit may redirect. And Paul talks about that all the time in his letters. I thought we were going to go here. The Spirit redirected over there.
Yeah.
That's a pretty normal occurrence. But the greater principle there is, we're supposed to be people who meet needs.
Yeah.
And so when you see needs, you meet them. We could talk about compassion, how we do that with kids. So yes, that should be a part of who you are as a Christ follower. And if it's not, you've left out a big part of what it means to be a Christ follower, because that is how, tangibly speaking, we become salt and light.
And that's why we do talk about generosity and stewardship and all these different ideas so often here at Vaughn Forest Church, is because it does give you, that opportunity. I love what you said there about being a generous tipper. And honestly, I think it kind of goes back a little bit. You were talking about the idea of going the extra mile and all that kind of stuff. Like, parents, have your kids work in the food service industry at least once, as they're growing. Different opportunities like that where you can then learn and empathize.
Yeah.
And when you understand those situations, I think you can better know what the Spirit is leading you to do there. I think that's a really good point.
Or if you have a babysitter, he or she's a high school or college student, pay them 20 more bucks than everybody else pays them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to miss the 20 bucks, but to them, it makes like,
Oh, it's
wow.
the big difference. Biggest difference
They'll
in the
never
world.
forget it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look for those little opportunities to do things that you're going to buy, 2 or 3 lattes at Starbucks. It's not going to change your life, but like for that person, that might be something that's super
right.
significant
Yeah.
for them.
That's really good. That's really good. Well, gentlemen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm looking forward to continuing the series this Sunday, 9:30 and 11 a.m. here on campus. For some reason you're traveling, people can always join us online, vaughnforest.com. We appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Other Six Podcast. On behalf of Adam Bishop, Matt Collins, sound guy Jonathan, and myself, we will catch you next time.